Well, there is a lot to talk about in today's video, guys. We've got a little bit of Jack Butland. We've got a little bit of Fabio Silva for you. Got a little bit of Todd Cantwell. And we've got a little bit of Ridvan. And also a little look ahead to the game upcoming on Wednesday as Rangers take on Kilmarnock at Rugby Park in what is now the biggest game of the season after Saturday, which was the biggest game of the season. As every game, I think, will be between now and the end of the season. You know, all these games are absolutely huge for the club. So let's talk a little bit about Jack Butland. Now, we obviously touched yesterday on what Jack had been saying as regards his possible departure in the January transfer window to an English club, in this case, Nottingham Forest. But Butland has been making, in this interview that he gave, has been talking about his time under former manager Michael Beale. And obviously what happened and how things have changed under Philippe Clement. Now, Jack had some very interesting points to make in this interview, where he talked about how he felt the team was performing under Michael Beale, and also how he feels the team is now performing under Philippe Clement. I mean, no doubts in our mind that Jack Butland is, one of, well, if not actually not one of, is he? He is the best signing we made this summer. He's been an absolute key player for us throughout the campaign, as we said on the video yesterday. You know, he talked about his time under Michael Beale and the club's time under Michael Beale. And he said that as a group, we were scrambling. We weren't in a good spot. It wasn't going to plan. It wasn't right. We were running down into a cul-de-sac, into a dead end. It didn't feel like we were getting to where we needed to get to. It's an interesting comment there from Jack Butland, from supposedly the manager who signed him, the manager who scouted him, although I don't think Michael Beale deserves all the credit for the signing of Jack Butland. I think, a lot of that has to go on, to rightly or wrongly to the previous regime, even to Ross Wilson to some degree, because the scouting on Butland was done pre-Beale. But those comments that Butland makes as regards, the fact that the club was going down nowhere, that it wasn't working, that it wasn't moving, that he says we feel this comment. It didn't feel like we were getting to where we needed to get to. We were running down a dead end. It's interesting, isn't it, when it comes from a player that there's always a little bit of a pinch of salt you have to put on comments like this. Players are always very positive about managers, the new manager, and perhaps not so about a former manager. But he doesn't really need to make a comment. He doesn't really need to talk about that time under Beale. You can kind of diplomatically answer that, professionally skate over it, in a number of ways. But for him to say that, in his opinion, and we're talking about a very experienced goalkeeper here, a very experienced player who's played for a number of clubs under a number of different managers. And, for him to be saying that, in his opinion, that's how he felt, you can only kind of think about what effect that was having on the dressing room, how that was influencing what was going on in the park and what was going on amongst the squad, in terms of their attitude, in terms of the way they played, in the terms of the effort they put in, the way they turned out on a Saturday or a Wednesday or Thursday, whatever day we were playing. Obviously, that for Jack Butland to come out and say, who is new to this, new to the team, theoretically was signed by Beale, for him to come out and actually say that this team was going nowhere and that's how they felt. And you can see why, to some degree, the team kind of turned off a little bit and didn't put in the effort it's now putting in. That, when a boss loses his staff in that way, they're not going to be motivated to perform. You, as a manager, as a leader, you need to inspire your people to perform for you. You need to, have a degree of loyalty, have a degree of motivation there. And it's quite clear under Beale that was sadly lacking. Now, he talked also about new manager Philippe Clement, and he said that people see him as this big bad character, which he does look big and scary. I wouldn't mess with Philippe Clement. He's not, but he could be if he wanted to be. He's the big bad wolf with the media, but he has us in a really confident place. Tactically, there are things he's been drip feeding into us all along about how he wants us to play. It's about being efficient, about creating chances, getting the ball forward effectively, and being extremely difficult to break down. All sort of, core elements of this game, core elements of the game of football, isn't it? And we have really seen that, over the weeks, this development in tactics, this development in style that Clement has brought in. And it's interesting, Jack Butland talking about that and, how he's drip fed these tactics, which he said he would do. He said it was never going to be a case of, right, do this, do this, do this, do this. which was a little bit of under the Beale regime. He is very much a very clever tactician, a very clever manager in terms of what he asks his players to do. He talked obviously very positively about Philippe Clement. He talked about what Philippe Clement brings to this team, and it's quite clear that the players love him, that the managers, that he is definitely, clearly favoured over Beale by these players. The players are playing for the manager. The players want to play for the manager. Something that it seems from Jack Butland's comments, but not just Butland's, but also comments made by Goldson and others, that there was a real breakdown in trust between the players and Beale near the end of his time. Jack Butland hopefully is on the verge of a recall to the England squad for the European Championships. But he is absolutely loving life with Rangers and loving life in Scotland. He says, there's always eyes on you. Football is a way of life up here. People can say what they like about the league, but every game is meaningful. Every game is do or die. It's not easy to do that every week, but as a player, it's what you want. No dead rubbers. He talked about as well about the fact that we can't afford to take our eye off the ball. We've got to be very focused in terms of chasing down this title. He says it was the boring cliche, one game at a time. That's the way it's been since the manager came in. It's bred into the lads now. It's just the next game, next game, next game. You've no time to breathe. So, it's fascinating, isn't it? That it's clearly getting through to the players as well. It's the next game. We focus solely on the next game, and then we focus on the next game, and then the next game. And it's clear the players, from what Butland is saying and what others have said as well, are totally buying into this philosophy. And that's what we need from this squad if we are going to go on and be successful. Jack Butland also had some comments about that lot's goalkeeper, Joe Hart, saying that he put his friendship with Joe Hart to one side. He says, as much as I love the guy, he's on the other side right now. He was the England goalkeeper. I thought, I've got to be this guy. Joe is someone I looked up to, but targeted at the same time. Ultimately, he was where I wanted to be. He certainly was a role model for me throughout my career and someone I respected greatly. But it's interesting, isn't it, that like Todd Cantwell, Jack Butland has clearly bought into the us against them kind of philosophy, the fact that we are Rangers and they are the enemy. And it's good, isn't it, that even the players that come to the club are clearly buying into this philosophy, including our fantastic goalkeeper, Jack Butland. But some great comments there from Jack in what he has to say. Let's talk a little bit about our superstar attacking midfielder, who is obviously out at the moment. We're missing a couple more weeks. That's Todd Cantwell. Todd Cantwell had some praise heaped on him by Sky Sports pundit Micah Richards during an interview that Richards did on a podcast with Gary Lineker. The podcast, for those who want to know, is called the Rest is Football podcast. He does this podcast with Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer. Apparently, Micah Richards watched the Rangers St Johnstone game. Not the best advert for the Scottish game, given that shocking pitch there up at McDermott Park. But still, Micah Richards went on to heap praise on Todd Cantwell. He said that as a player, he has really got something. He said it was quite a good game. Cantwell as a player, he's got something. He was also impressed with skipper James Tavernier as well, commenting that Tavernier, the right back, he scored over 100 goals. I know he takes free kicks and penalties, but that is absolutely ridiculous. Now, Todd Cantwell, who is currently on £22,000 a week with Rangers, apparently at one point nearly joined Leeds United, but instead chose to come up to Scotland and play for the Mighty Jers. Now, in his last full campaign in the Premier League, Cantwell played 37 times. He scored 6 goals and 2 assists. That's 8 goal contributions in 37 in a struggling Norwich team in the Premier League, which is a pretty decent return, showing what a talent Todd is. Now, according to a number of reports this morning, and well across the last few days, that if Todd returns to the same form that he was showing pre-injury, that there's a good chance that some English Premier League clubs might start come and sniffing around him in the summer. This is always a worry, when you've got players that are impressing, players that are playing well, and the fact that south of the border championship clubs have vast multi-million pound budgets. So, is there a worry that Todd could move on in the summer? Is there a worry that we could lose Todd in the summer? Now, I know at the start of the season there was some Rangers fans who were casting doubts over the performance of Todd and how he performed, in terms of, his assists, his goals record. But certainly since the winter break, he's come back and he's a new focused, played some absolutely fantastic stuff. And it was a real shame when he got injured. Yes, part of that was due to absolute sheer thuggery by St Johnstone at McDiarmid Park. But Todd is a top talent. And, a lot of people are saying that, despite his interest, he is likely to want to stay with Rangers. He is under contract until 2026. Apparently, he loves the club. He loves how he loves the atmosphere. He loves the fans. He loves, obviously, playing in Europe as well. So there's a good, strong chance that any attention, unless an unbelievable offer does come in, will be turned down, and Cantwell will not want to move on to the English Premier League. Now, one player who has absolutely excelled since the winter break has been Ridvan Yilmaz. Now, it was always levelled at him, his criticism around his physicality, his stature, and his fitness when he first came to the club. And when he was first signed, there was a high expectation on him to really go on and really impress and be, the new superstar left back for Rangers. Obviously, that was damaged by the fact that he was out injured a lot, that he missed a lot of minutes, and at times he was out muscled for things, out jumped. But it really seems since the winter break, Ridvan has been absolutely superb. And he was clearly, one of the best players on the pitch on Saturday afternoon against Hearts. His link play with Cortez was phenomenal. His crosses were threatening. He had a couple of shots as well. He's been absolutely superb, and really is hopefully locking down that place as a permanent left back. Now I know that Philippe Clement rotates, but Tavernier is never rotated. Goldson never seems to be rotated. So, I really hope that Ridvan really is that left back now until the end of the season. I'm sorry. I know he was a great seven, but I just don't rate Borna Barisic. I think the guy's absolute shite. I really do. Let's have a look at Ridvan Yilmaz's heat map from the game on Saturday. I mean, you can see there, the work rate, the ethic, that really working on that left-hand side, linking so well and coming into the middle slightly as well. One odd touch on the right, but the majority, you can see the amount of work this guy did during the game, and his crosses were always threatening, and the way he worked was always threatening. I mean, this season, you look at his stats: 20 games, 1 goal, 1 assist in the Premiership, 2 appearances in the SFA Cup, 1 goal in 1 appearance in the League Cup. Overall, 23 appearances, 2 goals, 1 assist, 1 yellow card this season for Ridvan Yilmaz, and he's played 1,501 minutes for the club. But I don't think those stats really do justice to Ridvan Yilmaz in the way that he has been playing. His crosses are a lot more threatening than what Barisic does. He's better going forward. He's better going back. His defensive work is a lot better than Barisic's. He's quicker. He just offers so much more for me going forward and backwards in this team. And he's so much more positive-minded, I think, than Borna Barisic. So, look, I've been so impressed with Ridvan and how he's played over the last few weeks. He is, for me, well, he should be, I think, for me, one of the first names on the team sheet every week. And I really do hope that he is in a place to play against Kilmarnock on Wednesday night at Rugby Park, which, of course, will be a tricky game, and we'll touch on that at the end of this video. Now, there's a lot of talk, obviously, about this man as well, Fabio Silva, who came on and scored an excellent goal on Saturday afternoon from that brilliant, amazing no-look pass from John Lundstrom. Fabio is another one who is, suddenly coming back into form. He came up here from Wolves, and, at times, it was said that he wasn't in form, he wasn't playing well. He scored twice in the Scottish Premiership already for Rangers, and started to really impress. But it's not just his goal scoring; it's also his movement as well. The way he works the back four. He scored 4 goals in total for Rangers this season in 19 games. He really is a quality player. Yes, he is not an out-and-out 9, but his link play with the 10 is excellent. The way he works the back four, a la Alfie, his movement drags players out of position. Now, I know that Civil Dessers scored 2 goals against Hearts on Saturday, and look, I'm not saying this because of my views on Dessers. What I am saying is, though, Kilmarnock will set up to block. They will set up to be tough to break down. They will set up to be difficult to play against. For me, SIlva needs to start on Wednesday night. Now, it does seem obviously likely that he could well do that, given the fact that Philippe Clement has, in the past few games rotated 1 game SIlva, 1 game Dessers. etc., etc. But look, the reason why I'd start SIlva over Dessers in the Kilmarnock game is his movement. I just think that his movement will drag their back four all over the place. I think it will drag them out, as well as he drops into the 10 role a little bit. And it's creating those spaces for the midfielders to get into, for Diamande to shoot, for Lawrence to get on beyond the striker, for Cortez, if he plays, to get on beyond the striker, for McCausland or Sterling, whoever's on the wing, to get in behind the fullbacks. You know, that's what we need to do. That's what Kilmarnock will set up to block and to make it as difficult as possible. And I just think that his movement is excellent. The way he plays just lends itself to away games a lot more than to home games. And that's why I would start with Fabio Silva against Killie on Wednesday night, guys. Certainly, obviously, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Look, this game on Wednesday night, it is, you know, yes, look, I'll be honest with you. Rangers have better players than Kilmarnock. Our starting 11, our squad is a whole lot better than theirs. Our players are better than theirs. Our manager is better than theirs. Nothing against Derek McInnes and his players, but we have got a better team. We have got a better squad and we have got a better manager. McInnes, there, will set his team up to be as difficult as possible to play against. And they have an excellent record at Rugby Park against the Old Firm this season, beating ourselves in that first game. Yes, obviously it was under Bailey. Yes, it was an awful performance. Yes, I don't think all the players who played that day were fully fit. They've also beaten Celtic at Rugby Park this year. You know, they are a difficult team to play against. And let's have a look at their form this season. Their home form, obviously, is clearly a lot better than their away form. They are unbeaten at home in their last 5 games. They've won 3, drawn 2. This season, they've played 14, won 8, drawn 4, lost 2. Their last defeat was on the 2nd of December against Hearts at home. They average 2 points per game at home, which is, you know, a pretty decent record. Away form, obviously, is what is letting them down, why they are not higher than 4th in the table at the moment. 13 games, 2 wins, 6 draws, 5 defeats, less than a point a game. You know, that's why they are not perhaps closer to Hearts or even closer to Celtic. I suppose more close to Hearts. You know, they are a very good home team. And yes, that hideously horrible plastic pitch does help matters. It really does. Their home form is the concern. You know, it is going to be a tricky game from that aspect. Now, look, the pitch is what it is. It's a horrible plastic pitch. Should we have plastic pitches? That's another debate for another day. But you know, the pitch isn't going to be any worse than the pitch we played on against St Johnstone at McDiarmid Park. I mean, that was absolutely shocking. Or the pitch we played on against Dumbarton. So, you know, the pitch will be smoother than that. So hopefully that will give the team an opportunity to play its natural passing game, which we played on Saturday. Let's have a little bit of look at some more Killie stats at home. So 57% of their wins have come at home, 29% of their draws, 14% of their losses. Their XG's for in a match is 1.55. Their XG against is 1.15. They score on average 1.5 goals per game at home. They concede less than a goal a game at home. Again, they have got a very good defensive record at home. That pitch must help matters. Average match goals is 2.36. 36% clean sheets at home, pretty decent, over a third of their games. They've only failed to score in 14% of their games at home. They have an average of 50% possession at home as well. Their average shots taken per game is 11.71 at home. Shot conversion rate is a good 13% at home. They concede 12 fouls per game. They get 11 fouls they give away 11.79 fouls. They've won 1 in 14 penalties at home. So, you know, look, you look at those stats, they have got a decent home record, and it is certainly their home record that is keeping them up there. That it is their home record that is helping them to maintain that 4th position. That's why it will be a tricky game at Rugby Park. And we've got to be on our mettle. You know, Philippe Clement must have these guys firmly focused and ready to go again, as he did on Saturday. You look at the overall results record between Rangers and Kilmarnock at Rugby Park. You know, 50 games played, 39 wins for Rangers and only 6 wins for Killie, 5 draws. So overall, you know, our record at Rugby Park is not terrible. It really isn't. It's just kind of, I suppose, the form that they're in at the moment. And, You know, I suppose we're all mentally scarred by the past as Rangers fans, aren't we? Well, obviously, we'll look at a bit more depth into those figures on tomorrow's Matchday News video. Thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. As always, if you've enjoyed the content, please smash that sub. And on the way out, there's 2 favors you can always do for me. Number 1, smash the like. And number 2, remember always, we are the people.